There's an aspect of this bill. Many folks are talking about ways stealing people's their money, kicking people off of health care, Social Security, the devastating aspects of this bill. And it has been reported, but I don't know if to the right degree, exactly what's happening with ICE.
Congressman, I've been struggling a little bit with how best to visualize and communicate the size of the money being directed to ICE here. I saw something today about it would make ICE one of the largest militaries in the entire world, a budget larger than the entire Brazilian military, for example. Like, how do you understand what this money means?
It would be enormous and huge. As you mentioned, it would be more money than the federal prison system gets right now in the United States. And as you mentioned, it will exceed the amount of money that some countries even use on their military. This is really a way to pander to their base. J.D. Vance saying that everything else is immaterial is a slap in the face to people who care about things like their health care, who care about things like food assistance programs so that they don't go hungry. We will see what you saw happening in Los Angeles on steroids if there's such a huge infusion of money. And what a waste of money.
What a huge waste of money. And I'm glad she made that point about what's going on in Los Angeles. The whole point of these billions, extra billions of dollars that they're sending to ICE, and then they're building these prisons like the one they just threw together down in the Everglades with the alligators and the Alcatraz, is to spend more of your money on more of this prison group, or this militarized group that's going and throwing people in random prisons in places. This is the militarization of the United States of America. I want to show you guys this graph. She did point out, along with Chris Hayes, of how bad this would be, how this bill would make this budget for ICE, specifically just ICE within this budget, larger than most of the world's militaries. You see the red point there on this. It's $37.5 billion. That's ICE. That's not a country. That's this Gestapo organization within the United States who's sweeping people off the streets with no questions, and also with unidentified agents. This is how much money that they're proposing to put towards ICE. You notice they're not talking about that as much. They call it border security and securing our nation, when really what it is attacking our nation. They need that much money to unleash this army onto American citizens. There's one particular representative that's against this, and he's always fighting. You've seen those couple of younger cats down in Tennessee that are fighting for it. One of them is Representative Justin Jones. He had something specific to put forward as an actionable thing to fight back against this, not just talking, not holding baseball bats or doing any kind of performative arts to push back on the agenda of these Republicans.
This bill is about public safety. This is actually what was identified as an ICE operation. This is not a partisan issue, let's be clear. This is an issue of what is right and wrong. In Brooklyn, a man told a 51-year-old Latina woman that he was an ICE agent. He led her to a stairwell, tried to rape her. In North Carolina, a man pretended to be an ICE agent and threatened to deport a woman if she did not have sex with him. In Philadelphia, a man robbed a business while masquerading as an ICE officer and detained a 50-year-old woman from the Dominican Republic using zip ties. And most recently, in Minnesota, state lawmakers were murdered by a man who was pretending to be a law enforcement officer. We gather here to say that there's nothing more un-American than an anonymous extrajudicial police force that can kidnap our citizens from the streets. There's nothing more un-American than this abuse of power and lack of accountability. And so today I call on my colleagues, both Democrat and Republican, join on as co-sponsors of House Bill 1442.
House Bill 1442 there, as I was pointing out, Representative Justin Jones putting forward to stop these unidentified masked agents and criminals from just doing anything they want. And as he pointed out from multiple articles and stories that happened of people acting like ICE agents, and ICE agents not sure if they're acting like ICE agents, but they're acting like criminals, telling people they need to take them into this back room or kidnap them into this one area, sexual assault, rape, potentially trying to be carried out on folks. Who knows, even murder, right? So wouldn't the people that are legitimate law enforcement officers be against people posing as law enforcement officers so they can go and carry out any kind of filthy techniques and crimes that they want to? They'd be upset about it if they weren't also doing maybe some of that same stuff.
Before I filed this, I want to make clear that I made an effort to meet with Commissioner Long, and Commissioner Long told me he can't identify the ICE agents. They don't have any record. What if we gave our citizens to vigilantes, to kidnappers? We don't even know where some of them are. That is unacceptable.
Have we seen examples of any masked officers or folks who were masked in our ICE agents here in Tennessee?
Every ICE agent that I saw was masked, but the ICE agents chose to put a flashlight in my face so we couldn't even take their picture.
In this photo, you can see that they say police, they say ICE, they have all of that gear on.
Some of these men who were trying to rape women bought their vest, an ICE jacket from Amazon. So that alone is not enough. I mean, this is not Star Wars. We do not want stormtroopers out policing our community.
Did those reporters, have they been paying attention? One reporter asked, have you seen any evidence of ICE agents with masks on their faces? Have you seen evidence of ICE agents without masks on their faces? That's all they do. And then the other reporter, she was wondering, so how is it that it's possible that they're posing as ICE agents if they're wearing police gear that you can get on Amazon? I mean, come on. Someone else was also wearing another Halloween costume as they ran up and acted like someone else. And let's not forget one of the first things that Jones said there. One of the bigger high-profile stories of someone posing as law enforcement officer right before they murdered that state representative, Representative Hortman in Minnesota, was because he was posing as a police officer, knocking on people's doors with the kill list that he had compiled. Again, this danger goes beyond them just talking about who they think are these criminal, illegal aliens that are on the streets that they assume ICE agents are going and picking up off the streets and taking them from the rape that they were on their way to commit. Like, it's cartoonish thought process. But when it's reality and when people are posing as ICE agents and actually harming people, effing crickets. He's not done. There's a little bit more from Justin Jones. He had more questions that he was taking from these folks, and they were pretty easy to answer.
There are officers that say, this is my job and I am worried about my safety. What would you say to that?
That when you sign up to be a law enforcement officer, you don't sign up to be anonymous. That is what is literally called the Gestapo, a secret police force. In America, we have a tradition of law enforcement proudly having badges, showing their face, knowing who your law enforcement officer is, so you have trust between them. Allowing mass officers to exist actually makes officers more unsafe. We heard this from Andy Ogles, we heard this from a few members. There's been no statistical data provided that there's an increase of lack of safety for ICE agents. And so the safety that we're concerned about are to the people we still don't know where they are, kidnapped not just by ICE, but by people who are disguising themselves as law enforcement. This bill is an anti-human trafficking bill. This bill is a public safety bill. This is not an issue of left or right, but this is a moral issue of what is right and wrong.
When you did ask for identification, they did show you a badge, correct?
Incorrect. And we're intentionally non-responsive. No ICE agent was willing to identify themselves. None of these masked men were willing to identify themselves. You know, everyone's gonna be talking about freedom and liberty this weekend. Let's come and pass some laws that are rooted in freedom and liberty and protection of all people.
So, I mean, the ICE agents say they feel unsafe. Has she looked into how many ICE agents have actually been assaulted or identified and stalked out? That was Tom Homan's talking point when he said, or also the director of ICE, we have to protect our agents because, you know, there's death threats coming as we go and push out death threats to citizens in the streets. Can you believe they're threatening my children's lives if I just told them I'm going to murder you and send your remains back to your family? Can you believe they would do this to us? She knew better. Yo, she knew better. And I'm not sure if she had to ask those questions in order to get the answer rather than writing her piece and saying it. She had to maybe quote the representative as dispelling those rumors. So I'm not gonna judge her, I guess her objective in doing that and what she was trying to get. But come on, the ICE agents feel unsafe. And they identified themselves, right? No, that's been what the whole agency is talking about. They're not identifying themselves. That's their point. Why would they identify themselves when they just said, we're not going to identify ourselves? Bro, just listen to the people that are committing the crimes. They're telling you that they're committing them. Just believe them when they're telling you that they're committing them.